Okay.
Recording in progress.
So we are holding this new mimer from Achron Shal Pesach Tovshin Mem. K'mei Tzatch Meretz Mitzrayim and the flows, like your days going out of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. The Isa Bazaar is brought down the Zoyar, Huva Bedrusha Rabbesein Nesienu. Also brought down in the Amorim the Rabbeim. We've seen this a lot in the Rebbe's Amorim. K'mei. Why does it say K'mei, like your days in the plural going out of Mitzrayim? K'yayim eboile, should have said like the day, not like the days. The habachad zimun nafku, they went out at once. It wasn't like, okay, the Yidden were emigrating out of Mitzrayim, it took a whole process. They had to get their papers, they had to go, they had to move, they had to pack, they had to get their passports. No. All went out at one time on the 15th of Nisan. It was only one day. So too, in the remembrance of the redemption of Mitzrayim, it says, so you should be able to remember the day of you going out of the land of Mitzrayim, all the day, it says further, the days of your life. But what do we see from that pasuk? It says, Yom Tzatcha. So we see that the Torah itself refers to it as Yom, as one single day. So in the Chumash, we refer to it as one single day. Here, in the Nevuah of Micha, we call it Yemei V'imkein Lama Namar Kimei Loshan Rabim. So why does it say like the days in the plural? Close, Habir Bazeh, the general explanation in this is the Mizman Yitzias Mitzrayim B'Pam Rishon. From the first time that the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, B'Tesva Ben Nisan on the 15th of Nisan, Ad Hagula Sida, until the future redemption. Kol hayamim hem yemei tzeitzcha meretz Mitzrayim. All the days are the days of your going out from the land of Mitzrayim. So it's a whole series of days that we are going out. We're going out of Mitzrayim already over 3,300 years. Every single day, every single year, we're going out of Mitzrayim. From what it says, like your days going out, I will show you wonders. Moving Shayitzim and Mitzrayim, it's understood that the going out of Mitzrayim is connected with the future redemption. Like it's brought down also, the Iluzacho if the Yidden would have merited, when they went out of Mitzrayim, they would have gone into Eretz Yisrael with Moshe Rabbeinu, it would have been the final Geula. So we see, both from the Pasuk, Mitzrayim and from what the Medrash, what the Chazal say, it's a Zoyar, it's a Maimon Chazal, that if the Yidden would have been Zoyche, they would have gone straight from the Mitzrayim out to the Gula Sida. So we see that the going out of Mitzrayim is part and parcel of, and is associated with the Gula Sida. So why it didn't happen, the future redemption? So there was a hiccup, there was a delay, there was a problem in between. But really, it's all about the future redemption. To note, the Seder of Pesach is also in such type of way. If you look at the Seder, the beginning of the Seder is referring to many, many things having to do with the past, with going out of Mitzrayim. At the end of the first half of the Seder, we make the bracha right before we wash that speaks about wishing that we will eat in Yerushalayim and Azvachim and Apsachim. The second half of the Seder, the second half of the Haggadah at least, after the meal and after the Afikoman, we talk all about what's going to happen in the future. Hashem is going to pour out His wrath upon the nations, etc., etc. It's all one continuation. We're going out of Mitzrayim to the level of the Gula Asidah. Okay, second paragraph on the first page. Hine, concerning the going out of Mitzrayim, it says, these are the journeys of the Bnei Yisrael that went out from the land of Mitzrayim to their hosts, to their army, to all their people. And after that pasuk, that the introduction, the Torah continues and enumerates all the 42 journeys. They camped over here, they went from here to there, etc., etc. And also on this pasuk, they also analyze the same type of question, to be able to understand why does it say these are the journeys in the plural. That why is it that they went and they said these are the journeys that they went out of the land of Mitzrayim, not these are the journeys after they left Mitzrayim. These are the journeys when they were in the Midbar. No, these are the journeys that they went out of the land of Mitzrayim. That the going out of Mitzrayim was only the first exit. It was the first journey that they traveled from Ramses, which was a city in Mitzrayim, to Sukkos, which was outside of Mitzrayim. And that was it. That was the entire journey to leave Mitzrayim. Why does it say these are the journeys in the plural? The explanation, this is similar to what we said earlier. All the 42 journeys until they arrived at the Yarden of the city of Yericho. Is the going out of Mitzrayim. Now, that seems to be just like a geographical thing. So we're going to explain, no, Yarden Yericho symbolizes the idea of the Gula Sida as well. So it's the exact same point, like we said before, that the journeys, Kimei Tzeis Chamer Mitzrayim, the days are all the days from when we went out of Mitzrayim to the Gula Sida. The same thing, the journeys in plural are all the journeys until Mashiach's times, not just till they came to Yericho. So he says, V'inyan Yarden Yericho, the idea of Yarden Yericho, who inyan Gula Sida is hinting at the future Geula. The Yericho who b'chias reach. Yericho is the level of scent. The core word, the is in the middle of the word is rei yud ches. It's the level of scent, and scent, smell, has to do specifically with Mashiach's times. Shetisgal Allah said like that will become revealed when Mashiach comes. Like it says Varicha b'yiras Hashem, he will give the Mashiach, he will give him the scent of the awe of Hashem. And the Chazal explain the Moirach V'doin, that Mashiach will have this great power, that he will not need to decide cases based on what he sees and what he hears via testimony and so on, but rather he will decide cases by the level of scent. Now, in this place, the Rebbe doesn't go into this. In other places, he explains the scent has to do with a much deeper level, etc. Hainu, this means to say, what is the sum total of what we just now said? What's the summary of what we just now said? That all the 42 journeys until we come to the future redemption are all considered part of the going out of Mitzrayim. Kol Yom in similar veins, Navoid of every single day, the Bechol Dor V'Dor V'Chol Yom V'Yom, that in every single generation, every single day, Chayav Adam Liris Esatzmei, a person is obligated to see himself and to show himself. Ki Ilu Yotza HaYom Mitzrayim, as if he went out today out of Mitzrayim. Like we were speaking about in the previous Maimer as well, that this is all a process of going out of Mitzrayim until we reach the Gula Siddha. Therefore, it's brought down in Chassidus that every single day we have 42 journeys. Just like it says that there was the 42 journeys going out of Mitzrayim. And since every day is going out of Mitzrayim, every day a person has to envision himself going out of Mitzrayim. So therefore, every single day in a person's avoided, there's 42 stages, 42 journeys. The first step in that journey begins with avoid of davening at the beginning of the day. And then there's the rest of the journeys. Like the idea of all these journeys are explained in different other places in Chassidus. Last paragraph on the page. In the Medrash, in the Medrash, it's brought down the pasuk. These are the journeys by and through Moshe v'Aaron. So he explains that this pasuk that says these are the journeys that was according to direction of Moshe and Aaron is also fits in to a pasuk in Tehillim that says the same thing. This is what the pasuk says in Tehillim: that you led your nation like sheep, just like a shepherd leads a flock of sheep. How? B'yad Moshe v'Aaron, through Moshe v'Aaron. So the Medrash associates the Eila Maaseh b'nei Yisrael concluded beyond Moshe Aaron, the same idea that says until. Who the idea behind this is that Moshe and Aaron were involved. What is the idea? That for these different Masois that we're talking about, this entire process of going out of Mitzrayim, that lead to the Gula Sida, needs to go through Moshe Aaron. Hine HaMasois Hein LaEretz Toiva Rechava. The journeys and the travels are to a good and broad land. Top of page, the second page, Reish Nun Hey. Bechinas Merchava Atzmi, what's called the essential broadness, Hashem's essentially broad state, the state that is completely and totally expansive, meaning beyond any type of limitation. It says in the pasuk, "Mi al bahar Hashem miyakum kem kadshay," who will rise up in the mountain of Hashem, and who will stand or be upright in His holy place. The Madreg Yezu, this level of Hashem's holy mountain, in other words, the Merchav Atzmi, this that we're traveling to, the Eretz Toiva Rechava that we're trying to reach. It's a level that's deep. Who can find it? In other words, it's such a deep and powerful level. So therefore, how are we going to make this trip? How are we going to go through these journeys? How are we going to do these daily steps to be able to reach us to the Gula Sida, to Eretz Toiva Rechava, to the broadness of Hashem's essence? We can only get there by Eitzah. The given advice for this is Moshe and Aaron. Through Moshe and Aaron, they enable us to reach. And now the Rebbe is going to explain the next paragraph. Each one contributes a different part. Moshe, there's what Moshe Rabbeinu contributes, and then there's what Aaron contributes. Second paragraph on the page, the explanation of this matter is the Moshe who sheshvina the Malcha. Moshe is called the escort of the king. The Aaron sheshvina the matronisa, and Aaron is considered the escort of the queen. Just like by a chasana, you have the chasan's escorts and you have the kala's escorts. And the point is to bring the chassan and kala together. The same thing, Moshe Rabbeinu's job is to bring the king, to bring Hashem. That the Matan Torah is likened to the first stage of a wedding. The Gula Sida is likened to the completion of the wedding. One is Kiddushin, one is Nisuyin. And Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who escorts and brings down Alakus and Hashem down to us, and Aaron is the one that escorts the queen, escorts Klal Yisrael, the bride of Hashem, to her chassan, to the Eibishter. He says the close avoid Adam, the idea the general avoid of a person can only begin, as we mentioned in other Mamorim, only when there's first an inspiration from above. When Hashem empowers us and inspires us from above, that's when we can begin doing our avodah. That's the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the escort of the king. He draws down the king from above. In the language of Chassidus and Kabbalah, that the level of Moshe, who's the escort of the king, draws down the level of Soiv Kalam that transcends the worlds into the level of godliness, Mamal Kalam, and that permeates the world. Once you have that initial level, once you have that Isurus Dole'ela, once you have that inspiration from above, then by so then that awakens and inspires by us the elevation from below. Sheshvina the matronisa, the escort of the queen, halos kalam, the raising up and ascent of the level that permeates the world into the level of that transcends the world. And through our avoid of refining the sparks, which is also part of the Malmata Lamailam, which has to do with our travels. The Midbar Ha'amim Agodlu Anoira, in the wilderness of the nations, meaning we're dealing with things that are outside of the realm of Kedusha, and there we have to elevate the sparks. It is the great and awesome wilderness. It's so very powerfully distant and low. These 42 journeys that we are taking through the wilderness of the nations, in other words, our whole lifetime and the whole period from the Geula of Mitzrayim till Mashiach's times, This is all, these 42 Masoyas are the process of the elevation of the sparks from below to above. Boy mahari beisor tura de prutel harib samim. We come from what's called Hari Beisor. Beisor, the Rebbe teaches from the word Bris Bein Absarim. It says in Shirashirim, use the words Hari Beisor. Besarim means the things that were cut. So Hari Beisor indicates mountains that were cut, meaning Tura de Pruda, mountains of separation, things of Klippa. So the journey is to go out and elevate and ascend from a state of Hari Beisor, the level of Tura de Pruda, mountain separation, the levels of Klippa, to El Harib Samim, to mountains of spices, pleasant smells, which goes back to what we were talking about before. Yericha has to do with Mashiach v'chinas Yarden Yericha, that we're going to the level of the Yarden of Yericha, the Meirach v'doim, that he is sent, he scents and he judges. And the scent of your brow is like apples. In other words, getting the very pleasing scent. Tachlis shleimus ha'avoida the makifim apnimim, the ultimate perfection of the avoida, both in the level of makif and the level of pnimi, which has to do with what the scent does. It has to do both in the level of makif and it's the person in the pnimis. Until we reach the level of the distant makif. We know Chassidus speaks about that there is the close makif, similar to garments, and there's a distant makif that's similar to a home. Moker kol makifim, which the distant makif is the source of all levels of makif. And even greater, higher even than the level that fills the worlds and the level that transcends all the worlds. And even higher than when they join together. This is all reached through our avodah b'midbar ha'amim, through elevating the sparks molmata l'mayla that follow the Yisrusa de la'ela of Moshe Rabbeinu. So that has now the elevation of the sparks that brings about and brings down this very high level, even higher than the level that joins together two opposites. The Rebbe always speaks about that. Join two opposites, you need to have a level that's higher than them. So even higher than the level that joins together Ramala and Soivkal becomes revealed through our avodah b'midbar ha'amim, dealing with all the sparks that we are elevating, the avodah habirurim. So now he's going to explain specifically the connection with Moshe and the connection with Aaron, why Moshe symbolizes what he symbolizes, what Aaron symbolizes what he symbolizes. But the idea behind this in the service of a person who Moshe, who inyanat Torah mitzvahs. Moshe is the level of Torah primarily, because first of all it's called Torah's Moshe. Moshe was the one that brought the Torah down. Torah is a level that comes from above to below. Hashem spoke to us. Meshamayim dibarti mochem. To a certain degree, mitzvahs are also about what Hashem gave us the power and sanctified the things. It's all Hamshach. This is drawing down from above to below. Like we said, that Moshe is Sheshvina, the Malka. He's the escort of the king. He brings Hashem and the king down here below. Aaron is the level of davening, the ascent. Aaron was the whole idea of serving the Beis Hamikdash. It was about the Karbanis. Karbanis is Tefillah's connected Karbanis Tiknun. And we know that the idea of the Tefillah that was established in the place of Karbanis, that's about an elevation that goes from below to above. It's about ascending and approaching and cleaving to Hashem. That's where it's the first thing that it says, that you have led like sheep your nation in the hands of Moshe. The first thing is, it says, in the hands of Moshe, it says over there in Tehillim. The manner of avodah of Moshe Rabbeinu is Torah, like we said before. The Kabbalah's HaTorah Hoya Aidesh Yisrael Hoya B'chinas Tzayin. How did Yidden receive the Torah? That took place because Yidden were in a state similar to sheep. What's the idea of sheep? Sheep is the idea of bittul. They're not like a shoyer, not like an ox that like gores and etc., or other wild animals. They're very calm, they're very quiet, and so on. Meaning, they accept everything, like it says, Akdamas Nasla Nishma. The Yidden just preceded and said we will do before we will understand. That was symbolized by the sheep. So when they were in a state of sheep, so then Moshe Rabbeinu could draw down to them. The being that the Yidden were like sheep, they had the bittul that drew down the level of Chachma, Yirei La, the higher level of Yidam. As we know, Malchus is Yirat Hatah, and Chachma, which is the point in the Kudah, total and complete bittul, that's the upper level of Yidam. How do we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was that level of Yirei La? Because we know the famous thing that the pasuk says, what does Hashem request of you and require of you? Only to have awe of Him. And the Gemara says, He is done awe, a small thing, a minor thing, but the Gemara answers, yes, for Moshe, it's a minor thing. So we see that Moshe Rabbeinu's level is the level of Yira. The Lagab of Moshe Milsa Zutrasehi, in regards to Moshe, it's a minor thing. By days of Poil Habir Betura, the Pruda, through that, the Hamshacha that comes from above to below, through Moshe Rabbeinu, through that, it affects that the refinement of the mountains of separation, like we said, the traveling through the wilderness to elevate it, that a very great powerful light comes down. Torah through Torah. Where do we see that Torah is a powerful light? The Chesiv that says concerning Torah, behold, my words are like fire. In other words, the Torah is like fire, a powerful light. Why is that so? Because the Torah and Hashem are entirely one. Even more general, in a more general fashion. What's the powerful light of the Torah? We say that Hashem, not just that Torah and Hashem are entirely one, but Hashem and His wisdom, which goes specifically on Torah, and Hashem and His will, which specifically goes on mitzvahs, are His will, are considered one. So therefore, by Moshe Rabbeinu drawing down the level of Torah and a similar vein mitzvahs, we have the powerful light necessary to be able to do the berurim through the great powerful light. So then all the negative things melt like wax. And we come to the mountains of spices, the moirach v'doyin hanal, of the level of the geula, of the level of Mashiach, that He's able to send and judge. That is what we spoke about, the avodah of Moshe that has to lead the Yidden as sheep. What is Aaron's contribution of leading the sheep? So we said before that Aaron is the level of davening, Hikoyin, Tefillah, Karbonis. So he says, in tomorrow's Nasi, what we'll talk about, that Aaron's job is to kindle and elevate the candles, which is referring to all the 7 different types of Neshamas Yisrael, as this always talks about. And the whole idea of kindling the fire is about having the fire go from below to above, Hala Milmata, the elevation from below. And how does He elevate? How does He cause it to ascend from below to above? It's through meditating in all the constrictions and constraints and boundaries. Mitzrayim the Kedusha, like we learned yesterday, they're the constraints and boundaries of holiness. That those constraints is a source for Mitzrayim down here below. And when he thinks into those constraints, through that he wants to leave behind all the measures and boundaries. He wants to break out of that. He doesn't want to stay in these constraints. Like it's explained, the whole mashal that the Rebbe always brings down, that when there was the king came into a new country, different people wanted to have and were excited by different types of officers and ministers and so on. But the wise one said, the clever one said, I want the king himself. In other words, I don't want the limited aspects of Kedusha. They can be holy, they can be great. There are all different types of ministers and so on. But that's not enough for me. I want to break out of everything. Pratis Yaiser, and even more specifically, when he thinks into the fact that his neshama descended from a high building to a deep pit and dungeon, top of the 3rd page, Lemitzrayim the Kedusha, first he descended to the constraints of holiness, and then until the most lowest extreme, still in the constraints of Kedusha. Until, for different reasons, and because awesome is the scheme that Hashem made against man. Yordad Mitzrayim del Umazed, the Neshama descended until Mitzrayim of the opposite of Klippim, Midbaram Magodla Noida, the wilderness of the nations, the great and awesome one, Eretz Yavoyabli Mayim, a dry and parched land without water. This thinking into this this inspires in the person the will to go upwards. And he puts an effort in his avodah that he should kindle and ascend the candles, the light of the neshama, to go upwards.